So if you've been watching the news lately, you've probably seen that there's been a lot of downgrades of companies where their guidance has been lowered. They've been very cautious about giving guidance into the second half of the year. We've seen a lot of dark clouds come over the semiconductor industry, even though the economy seems to be doing really well. And not just semiconductors, both electronics and equipment as well. So Andrea and I thought it would be a good time to come back and update you on some of the stuff we'd given just before the holidays and talk about how our forecast is changing and what are some of the driving forces to that. So welcome to the program, Andrea.
It's good to be here, Dan.
So when did all this start that we started getting concerned?
Well, early February, actually, that's when we saw the first signs. And if you look at the CPPI, which is one of our leading indicators, it got really weak in February. We saw some really unusual declines, which were greater than even 12-month Moore's law rate.
And the CPPI is?
And Chip Price Performance Index. And so those declines were quite large, actually, and it was a sign that something was wrong. And also the issue there was that the declines were across the board. So it wasn't just DRAM, but we saw weaknesses in NAND, we saw weakness in the MPU prices. So it was across the board, and that was really our first sign that we knew that there was some weakness in the market. It was just a matter of how big this weakness was.
Yeah, and then we started seeing weakness in semiconductor sales on a weekly basis.
Yes.
And it was definitely, we could see this trend down in the overall year-over-year growth, and the year-over-quarter growth was terrible, but that's usually normal for the first quarter.
Yeah, and now that we've gotten a little bit of reference or some guidance from the companies, we can pretty much see where first quarter is heading. And typically the first quarter is it's a weak quarter because of the seasonality. However, it appears that we're going to be well below that seasonality. Typically, we see for ICs a decline of about 3% in first quarter, but I think that when everything is said and done, first quarter will probably be down 6%, which really set us back for the year, because if the first quarter is weak, it becomes really very hard for the year to have healthy growth rate, because then the following quarters have to record some really substantial growth to hit that 7 or 8% growth target that we're expecting early in the year.
Yeah, you were looking at like Micron Technology and saying that they're going to have a hard time.
Yes, and
some of the other memory producers.
Yeah, and actually the Micron story fitted pretty much with whatever we saw in the spot market. They did see a lot of weakness on both DRAM and NAND. And part of it is two things. It's the PC market was a little bit soft in Q1, and so there was some demand issue there. But on the other hand, the yields are coming up.